friends. So today we have two cooking goals. One of them being we are going to make biscotti and sweet and sour meatballs with like a sticky rice. I think I have some cauliflower I need to cook up. So biscotti is kind of like a really crunchy cookie, but it's kind of cooked long ways, and you can dip it in cocoa or tea or coffee, and it's sweet without being super sweet. It's just kind of more like a delicate thing. Anyway, I will be making that for the first time today, and then the sweet and sour meatballs, I'm just going to be throwing things into a pot like I usually do. You know, typically I loosely follow a couple recipes and I just go off of memory, but I will be sure to link in the description everything you need to know. Yeah, all right, let's get started. My niece was over for a little while, so I need to do some cleaning up, and then we will get started. And I might need to change my shirt because we made a mess. All right, thanks for watching. So as I think the last video probably is talking about how our hot water heater is out, and it still is. So also trying to use as few dishes as possible. Our garage is messy, so you'll have to excuse it. Just wondering where my sparkling water went. Thought I had some left. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this orange sauce that I'm making for the meatballs, I have used this recipe for sweet and sour chicken. I've used it like on some like rice noodles. I've used it, I think, for pizza, for like a Thai, chicken pizza. Anyway, it's really good and it's really easy. So I'm first going to clean up the kitchen. Basically, I have a lot of cleaning to do. And then we've got some cooking to do. Okay, so I have everything set out for my biscotti. Basically, the 3 eggs that I'm going to use have to come to room temperature just a little bit. So I have all that set aside. I'm going to work on my meatball mixture. And let's see. And then while the meatballs are in the oven cooking, I'm going to make my orange sauce to go with it. So in this biscotti recipe, you will need 2 tablespoons softened butter, 1 1/3 cup sugar, 3 large eggs, 2 teaspoons vanilla, 3 1/4 cup flour, 1 tablespoon baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon salt, 2/3 cup almonds if you're using almonds, 2/3 cups if you want to use chocolate chips. And it also suggests a ½ teaspoon of anise, because a classic Italian biscotti, I guess, has vanilla and anise in it. Anise is sort of like a herby kind of flowery taste. So that'll be interesting. So I think I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna do chocolate chips. I think I'm just gonna use some cranberries. But if you were making almonds, I will put that in the description below so you know what to do. I'm going to get out my meatball mixture. Okay, so this sticky rice recipe wants you to soak the rice in water for about 4 to 10 hours, and basically you just want to use like a simple white rice. And then this says to it says to put this rice in a colander and then get the water level just above the bottom of the colander and then take out the rice. I'm not going to do that step because the recipe I read before this one didn't say to do that. Basically, the soaking method and using some salt is kind of what made it sticky, I guess. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to fill this with, with rice usually it's a 1 to 2 ratio. So 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, 2 cups of rice, 3 cups of water. So I'm just going to do that with this, and then I'm probably going to add either a chicken or a beef bouillon cube for my salt. And then this says just to bring to a simmer, and when it's at a simmer, put the pot back on, with the lid back on, and put it at a low for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to do all that. Again, all of this will be in the description, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so our meatball mixture. So when I make meatballs, I sort of like a Indian curry flair to them. So those are like the spices that I tend to use. Turn you around here. So what I'm going to be grabbing is just some chili flake, onion powder, parsley you always put in meatballs, and some cumin, garam masala, I hope that's how you say it, is always in curry dishes. And yeah, it has salt in it, so just be aware of that. And making sure I'm going to do poultry seasoning because I'm going to be using some sausage. Okay. Is that it? Yeah, okay. Now, there's essentially no right or wrong way to make meatballs other than you want to make sure you use some sort of breadcrumb because you want it to hold together. Usually you need at least 1 egg and a little bit of milk. I'm going to use a little bit of yogurt, something to kind of help bind it too. As long as you've got that and salt and pepper, you're good to go. So any of this stuff, you totally don't have to do what I'm doing exactly. But these are like the flavors that I like. So I'm going to start with some Greek yogurt, plain, and I'm going to be using about 1 pound of sausage and about 1 pound of beef, and so I'm just kind of thinking in terms of just want to make sure I'm using enough. And as always, I'm eyeballing everything. But I always include a recipe, and I always include a recipe in what I am doing because I know that a lot of times if you're just starting out, you want to know exactly how much to use. A little bit of soy sauce. In my opinion, this is also a very essential ingredient in meatballs, is Worcestershire. This sauce. My dogs are over there playing in the corner, so don't mind that. And I like a nice, healthy squeeze of mustard. And a little bit of ketchup. Alright, now I'm going to put in my spices. So I'm going to use some thyme, red chili flake because my sweetheart and I like things not too spicy, but just a little bit. A good amount of parsley because those flecks of green in your meatballs, it just looks really, really nice. And it tastes good. So poultry seasoning has a lot of the things I just added, but it also has pepper and nutmeg. Now, nutmeg, to me, tastes so good on anything sausage related, or like if you're making like mac and cheese, anything that has a very like savory taste to it when you cook it is really great with poultry seasoning. Poultry typically is like chicken or something, but anything that is just a very like rich flavor, that's perfect with. Onion powder, pretty good amount of that. If I wanted to, I could take some onion and finely dice it and add it to this, but I'm not going to do that. Garlic powder, cumin, and for the showstopper, garam masala. Fairly decent amount of that. I probably did about 2 tablespoons of that. Basically, this is what I got. Just gonna mix that around. That if you do this before you do anything else, then it's gonna get all of your salt and your flavors all perfectly incorporated, which is what you want. You want a really good vessel to carry your spices throughout your mixture here. Alright, so that's what we got. Alright, I'm going to go find some breadcrumbs. Alright, my rice is over there, still doing its thing. So, it's a little controversial. A lot of meatball or meatloaf recipes say use 2 eggs. And I have equally heard 1 is like plenty. So you know what I do? I just use 1. Because the thing is, the biggest thing you want is flavor, and you want them to combine together. But if it's too wet, it's not going to do that. And then you just have to use more breadcrumb, and it will dry it out. So, I just err on the side of just 1. You can always add more moisture. About a cup. If I need it, I'll add an extra half cup breadcrumb. And now, take off your rings, if you got them. And I'm going to add my sausage. Now, this was came in a pack that already had the casing, so I'm just gonna take it off. Do yourself a favor, and you know, if you see this casing and you're like, oh, that's not separated from it, which is what I used to do. It's just cheaper. I'm talking over myself for a second. What I was trying to say was, when I went to the store and it called for like a pound of sausage, but the sausage was in a casing, I'm like, oh, it's not outside of a casing. What am I supposed to do with that? It came
What I'm saying is it's cheaper usually to buy it with it in a casing that you can just separate.
Practically off. And that's just going to sit there for about 10 minutes. And I did add some beef bouillon just to add some salt and kind of that more umami flavor that we all love. For those that don't know, I'm not necessarily saying that MSG is good or bad. I'm not going to have that discussion, but foods that have MSG in them, we all crave that flavor. And if you can create that naturally just by browning things or, you know, just taking the extra step and using, so like I'm going to do beef and sausage, and that's going to be very rich and hearty without having to add MSG to anything. You just do it naturally. Or I made a vegetable soup here not too long ago, and all the vegetables I used, I just fried them on a pan and darkened them so they had some color to them. And it just makes all the difference, just taking that little step, that little extra step. Okay. This is very cold. I should have let it sit out at room temperature just a little bit longer, which is my suggestion for you. If you're making this recipe at home, bring your meat mixtures out at least, I mean, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour. Like, this is freezing cold. But I'll be okay. Alright. I'm going to see if I can help this along a little bit with a spoon so my hand doesn't freeze. This is already looking really great. It smells really great. The other thing about using, like when I use my parsley, is that the green flecks, you can see it all throughout your meat mixture. And that kind of gives you a good idea of, oh, then my salt got everywhere. It should, or my pepper, or whatever. Because it's, you know, it's kind of a, not only is it pretty to look at, it's tasty. It can also show you that, oh, your seasoning made it throughout the whole dish. So, alright, we are almost done here. These look great. I got my oven preheated to 400. We'll see if I have to lower that at all. Alright, we're going to do the stick test. Okay? You're going to just use your thumbs and just kind of push it around and see how well it sticks together. Now, if you see this little portion right here, it's kind of cracking in the middle. It's not enough. So, I'm going to use the rest of my vinegar. When you roll it, you just want it to be just perfectly smooth and hold its shape really, really well. Alright, see how that looks. I need to mix it a little bit more, but that already looks a lot better. So basically, you're rolling it and you can tell if it needs more breadcrumb or maybe a little bit more moisture. You just kind of want a balance. Now, that is nice and firm. It's holding its shape. That's what you want. I need to mix it around a little bit more, but I'm going to stop this here and keep going. Alright, oven is preheated and my meatballs are rolled out. The texture could be smoother, but again, I'm impatient. And my beef and sausage were not as room temperature as I'd like. Otherwise, these are going to turn out fine, but if it's you, let it sit for a little bit and they'll be perfect. Okay, I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to do 400 to start. If I need to drop it a little bit, we'll see what happens. But that should be good. Make sure my dog isn't in the way. Alright. Okay, this is my rice after about 10 minutes of sitting on low. I'm just going to stir it just a little bit to get that beef mixture around, and I'm going to let it sit just a little bit longer.
Okay, let's get started on my orange sauce. So, well, sweet and sour sauce. When I put it into Google, I think what I put is homemade orange sauce, but I make mine just super slightly different, and I will show you how in this video. So, basically the only ingredients you need is orange juice, soy sauce, and some rice wine vinegar, brown sugar, and I think I did add some white sugar too. I'll have to look at my list here and see. And then it also called for ginger, this particular recipe, but I didn't have it, and I like the health benefits of ginger, but it's not always like my favorite spice, so I just used cinnamon, and I think it turned out great. And I also doubled this recipe. I made my meatballs kind of on the slightly larger side because it was kind of a main dish, it was piled on top of rice. But if you were making them kind of smaller, and maybe this meal was just for 1 or 2 people, just 1 serving probably would have been fine. But also, it stores in your fridge very well. So, totally up to you. But again, I doubled mine here. And basically, I'm just making sure that I have all my ingredients right. At this point, my rice is pretty much done. It's just cooling just a little bit. Basically, I just followed the same directions as just making regular rice. I think the difference being the texture was better than regular rice and tastier because I let it soak a little bit. So anyway, something to know if you ever make any rice recipe. Soaking it for, 4 hours. You could probably even just do it overnight. I think I ended up doing mine for closer to 4 or 5. And as you saw there, I added some red chili flake at the end. I used a little bit more than the recipe said because my husband and I like it a little bit on the spicier side. So in the description, I will put exactly what to do with this orange sauce, but basically I had it on the stove and I had it on about a medium the whole time, and as it just started to bubble, I turned down the heat a little bit and I added my cornstarch slurry, which basically is just cornstarch and water. Added it to that, and you can just keep cooking your sauce until it's the thickness you like. If you need to, you can also add a little bit more cornstarch too. You just want to make sure that you put it in water first, otherwise you will have cornstarch clumps, and nobody wants that. If you were going to make this like ahead of time and freeze it, I would say you could probably do the sauce on the thinner side because you will be cooking it and it will heat up and kind of thicken. Otherwise, if you're just pouring it on top of something, just cook it until it's, the thickness of a sauce. And it came together pretty quickly. You just have to be mindful of your temperature and make sure it's not too low, not too high. With all the sugars and everything, if it's too high, it will start to bubble over. So just be aware of that. Ask me how I know. Look how pretty it is. And it turned out so good too. I mean, you could put this on chicken, lots of different things.
Okay, our orange sauce is cooling a little bit. Our rice is done. Our meatballs are done, and they turned out delicious. Let's get started on this biscotti. The butter that I had in my fridge, it's kind of a butter substitute. But you usually you add like a bit of an oil to this dish. Anyway, this one didn't call for it specifically, but usually you do, so it will be fine. Use what you have. Okay, so we are going to cream our butter and our sugar. I already have everything measured out here. I'm going to add in my vanilla to this. And this recipe suggested half a teaspoon. Okay. Yes. Half a teaspoon of anise. This is also in licorice. I was reading the side there a little bit, so fun fact. And while we're there, let's do our almond. Oh, this particular one, unless I didn't write it down, didn't say anything about an almond extract. I looked up like 5 different recipes before I did this, and I chose kind of the easiest one. I am going to, if I can open this, I'm going to add just a touch of this. I'm not going to add in almonds. Okay, now let's put in our butter. Our 10 tablespoons of softened butter. And I'm going to mix this around.
Alright, I muted this part just to save your ears. Basically, you take your flour mixture and you add just a little bit at a time. And I did end up using more flour than this recipe called for, because you don't want it to be cake batter. You definitely want the dough to be more pliable. And if need be, you can pour it out onto a floured surface and kind of mix it around that way as well, which is what I did end up doing here. I don't know if that was the recipe or maybe just the way I wrote it down. I will check when I post this video, but yeah, just use more flour to make sure it's the right consistency.
My oven is set at 350. And this recipe also said if dough is too sticky, then dust the top with some flour. Alright, a touch. Alright, and it wants 2 different parts here. I'm actually going to grab some more flour. I think this is just a little bit too sticky. You know what? I think I'm going to experimenting, right? Going to kind of squish all this together and kind of see if that will give me the consistency I'm looking for. Okay, that's already a lot better. I'm not sure if I just wrote down the wrong amount, but just kind of rolling this out by hand and adding extra flour helped a lot. All right. Alright, now to try and get these into 2 layers here. And it also said you want them 4 inches apart. Kind of make these a long rectangle shape here. Alright, let's put these in the oven for half an hour.
Going out to eat for an experience, I understand, but when you can make food like this at home, it's way more inexpensive, it's delicious, it lasts you longer because then you'll have leftovers or freezer meals. This turned out delicious. And here is how my biscotti turned out. It cooked in the oven for half an hour, and then I let it cool for about 20 minutes. There's lots of different recipes online that have varying times to let it cool, but in my experience, 20 minutes was the perfect amount of time because it was still a little bit warm from being cooked, but it wasn't so cool that it crumbled. And you either want to get a bread knife, which is what I have here, or a serrated knife. And you're going to be cutting about 1/2 inch slices. So as you cut these, you put them sideways on the pan, facing up, because then you'll put them in the oven for 10 minutes. Flip them and cook them for an additional 10 minutes.
It's the next day. This is how my biscotti turned out. And me and my sweetheart and my roommate, who I originally made these for because she wanted some, we've been nibbling on them yesterday after dinner and this morning. I have a cup of coffee heated up, and I just thought I would let you know how it turned out. So I did add just a little bit of a chocolate layer on top, and I did not put these in like a plastic bag to store them overnight. I just left them on the sheet pan and let them continue to dry out, and these will last a very long time just sitting, at room temperature. So, but I will give it a taste right here on camera. I took too big of a bite. So, the hint of almond and vanilla, and I really like that anise flavor. It kind of gives it a licorice taste. I know that sounds weird, but that's how they described anise, was sort of a herby, flowery licorice taste, but I really like it. I really like it. It's not too sweet by any means, and it's very flavorful. I like the cranberries. This is going to be perfect for dunking in my coffee over there when it's done being too hot. It's perfect, and I'm definitely going to make these again. I don't think I would change anything. The chocolate's a really nice touch too. So, alright, well, thanks for watching. Cheers!